What's up, nerds? Did you know that the Catholic Church has a 15-year-old boy on display in one of its churches in Italy, and apparently this kid is about to be named a saint? So my brother brought me onto this the other day when we were talking on Discord, and he goes,
Did you know that they can create new saints?
and I was like,
You mean like Catholic saints?
and he goes,
Yeah, exactly. Apparently they're gonna name a new one here soon, and you'll never believe this shit.
and he sent me this. And I don't know how to feel about this. That is a child in a glass box on display. Anyways, quick backstory on this. This kid right here, the kid in the tomb, his name is Carlo Acutis. He is an England-born Italian web programmer who apparently helped modernize the Catholic Church to some degree. So back in the early 2000s, he began documenting these Eucharistic miracles and approved Marian apparitions. So for us non-Catholics and those who don't know what either of those words mean, that means he had a website that had a list of all the miracles that occurred due to events like communion or anything within the Catholic Church, which are the Eucharistic miracles, as well as any supposed spiritual interactions people may have had with the Virgin Mary. Yeah, this was like those interactions that like the Greeks had back in the day with their gods, and like a very crucial moment in their lives. Like Zeus came down in the middle of like a battle or somebody's really philosophical moment to tell him what to do or to stay away from his many human wives. One of the two. So to bring it back a little bit and be a little more serious, sadly, Carlo was diagnosed with leukemia at the age of 15. He, out of nowhere, had a horrible pain in his throat, and over a few days of medical analysis, they deemed it to be leukemia. Now, this kid is an absolute fucking legend. While on his deathbed, the doctors asked him if he had any pain, and his reply was, there are people who suffer much more than me. That alone, as a 15-year-old boy, just to be like, hey, does it hurt? And you go, others have it worse. That's absolutely legendary. And then his supposed last words ever spoken to his mother were also very, very poetic, in the way that speaking to his mom, he said, "Mom, don't be afraid. Since Jesus became a man, death has become the passage towards life, and we don't need to flee it. Let us prepare ourselves to experience something extraordinary in the eternal life." Now, for that to come out of a 15-year-old boy's mouth on his deathbed, I have no words. None. Respect. Now, the story does keep going, though. Upon his request, like one of his final requests was to be buried in Assisi, Italy, which is a gorgeous town, by the way. Look at these pictures. Wow. So as he is buried there, or I guess put on display, as we've kind of come to know, people started coming to pray to his body for their own personal matters. And there was a report, which was the second report in which Pope Francis kind of noted that this may be a very special child. Not in that way. Fuck. Pope Francis heard that there was a Costa Rican woman that came and to pray for her daughter who suffered a brain hemorrhage due to a bike accident. And apparently the same day that she prayed to to Carlo, the daughter began to breathe on her own again and then was able to walk the very next day without any sign of the brain hemorrhage ever actually existing. So this being the second occurrence that Pope Francis as well as the Catholic Church have seen with reference to miracles happening by way of Carlo. In the eyes of the Catholic Church, this is a one-way ticket to becoming a saint, or at least having conversations of becoming a saint, in which they actually did agree to have this happen, and it is going to happen this year. It is going to happen on the 25th through the 27th of April of 2025, during what is apparently called the Jubilee of Teenagers. Crazy. So now, as a final note, while this kid was a legend to some degree and obviously has done a lot for the Catholic Church, enough to be named a saint and people come to pray to him, there is one thing that I want to leave you with that still kind of leaves me a little ooey gooey in my mind. So let's go back to this image right here. So this is him. This is his body. Preserved for almost 20 years. Because remember, he died back in the early 2000s. So they just kind of kept him on ice for 20 years and then later put him on display. Now, what I do want to note, though, that there is a wax coating around his entire body to display the body as it was the day that he died. So again, a final little note. While an interesting story that this man or this child had, and all the changes to the Catholic Church and help that he gave people, apparently, still weird, man. Still weird. And apparently they're going to eat him, too, on the 12th of October. Catholics are wild, man. Anyways, so yeah, that's a nice little story about Carlo Acutis that I was made aware of all of this, and I thought it was very interesting, and I hope you did too if you watched this video. I don't know how to feel about it, but again, I wanted to do a little bit of research into this to see the whole story and see how this whole thing happened, because you don't just put a 15-year-old in a display box for any reason, or at least you shouldn't. But yeah, so I hope this was informative and you enjoyed and you learned a little something new. And with that, I'm gonna say goodbye. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll be back soon. Okay. See you later. Goodbye.